Hi, welcome to Next Step Leadership, the September LeaderCast interview. We have a lot of cool content coming for today. This is an action-packed sit-down with Dr. Steve Cathcart. Before we get started, though, I have a surprise for him. I have to ask him a question.
All right.
How nice is this robot bag?
It's really nice.
It's
really nice.
This is one of my favorite new things. For those of you who don't know, I have an absolute affinity to old school robots. You like it?
I do.
All right. Well, in this bag, we have not had a chance to link up since December pre-COVID. So this is our first time actually getting, other than doing diversity and inclusion workshops together and being close over the past 7.5 years. One of the things that Dr. Cathcart and I have an affinity for are watches.
Oh, man.
So I did not get a chance to give him his Christmas present that I got him that year.
Oh, man.
So I unwrapped it because I was never sure when I would see you again, but I got you Merry Christmas.
Man.
Early out. Surprise.
I am truly surprised.
The navy and gold just for you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Angelo.
Happy belated Christmas to my good friend. Thank you for being here and supporting Next Step Leadership.
That is
also, Dr. Cathcart is going to be published in Lessons in Leadership Volume 2, which also comes out in October. We have a lot going on. Volume 1 is available right now if you are interested in seeing what my early my leadership journey was early. And continue to grow and work on things. Let's get to it. Now that he's been surprised, we've made it a little bit more comfy and fun.
He's messed me up. Now I want to cry.
He doesn't have to cry. I'm happy to have you. Dr. Cathcart is one of those guys that lights up a room. He's facilitated workshops. He's worked with Fortune 500 companies. He's done so much with diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and accessibility that he could probably start a phone book if he built out his actual resume with the content and the amount of advocacy he's done for people as they've continued to search for options within employment. And was a really good friend when he did work closely with me. And we continue to have this bond, and he continues to support my dream of continuing to share ideas and concepts of leadership. So welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. And as always, our questions are based off of people. So I will send out a mass email on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and say hi, and YouTube as well, and say welcome. What questions do you have for ... And yours was a Chief Human Resources Officer. So we have a world of good content and questions that came our way, and the opener for me has always been, who is Dr. Steve Cathcart?
Well, I'm a lifelong resident of North Carolina. I've been in North Carolina all my life. Went to school here. Went to Charlotte-Mecklenburg Public Schools. Went to my beloved North Carolina Agriculture and Technical State University in Greensboro, North Carolina. I have a degree in history from there. Got my doctorate from NC State. So all public, all North Carolina schools. I do love North Carolina, even though I've had a chance to travel around and do some other things.
Keep coming home.
Yeah, I keep coming home. I keep coming home. I think I'm what I would describe anyway as an extroverted introvert.
Yes. Yes. So you got to go home and recharge at some point.
I got to go home. I got to go home and recharge because all the positions I've had are dealing with people, and so I try to have high energy when I'm dealing with people. When I'm facilitating the class, when I'm working one-on-one or whatever, I try to make sure that I keep my energy up. And it does get draining at times.
That's the energy transfer in and of itself could be something like that, where if it's personal or professional and it blends, or I imagine most of the time when someone sees someone in your type of role or your team's role, they're probably in crisis, right? Or they're not sure how to work with something, or they maybe in a gray area with the rules or whatever.
Right. Well, yeah. A lot of times you're dealing with some things that are just so personal.
Sure.
So personal.
Sure.
You're dealing with you're dealing with health issues. You're dealing with somebody potentially losing their livelihood. You're dealing with deaths of family members. You're dealing with all kinds of things. You're dealing with the whole spectrum of the human condition
Sure.
and the employee condition. You're dealing with all kinds of things.
And you have to find a way to work with that energy, but then also be able to go home and put the covers on and go, okay, I've got to live with my decisions and the energy I transfer today. Thank you for
Absolutely.
that. So what are your current goals? It sounds like you got one of those high energy jobs.
Yes.
And you're always in the decision making side of things. So it's almost like, man, I could buy that yacht tomorrow, almost, right? Or what are the current goals for Steve Cathcart?
I am definitely not in yacht territory.
He's not in yacht.
I'm definitely
we
not in yacht
aspire
territory.
to yacht territory.
I do aspire to big boat territory, not necessarily yacht territory.
All right.
But my current goal, in short, is to build a world-class human resources department in my current organization, and that's professionally. I say personally to really improve my health, work on my health, and just live a more healthy lifestyle. I'm down right now about 60 pounds. So
yeah, man.
So I'm trying to get 40 more off of me, and then I'm done. I don't want to look like a bobblehead. I'm just
now, so personally, it's your physical health and
Yes.
wealth. It's funny because Joyce was our August interview. Joyce talked about mind, body,
Absolutely.
Head, heart, and she made her goals simple, right? So she was like, I'm going to walk the dog. I'm going to read one hour a day, and she had this very simple routine. What are you doing to have such success and feel as good as you do? I mean, you're lighting up telling me about it. Tell me what's bringing that success for you.
And I like what you just said. Just being intentional about what I'm doing, keeping it simple.
Sure.
My whole thing is keep everything simple.
Okay.
So I just make sure I work out a certain number of hours a week. 3 days a week, about an hour and a half every day. I don't try to overdo it, and just make little changes in how I eat. Not big changes. I still love to eat. Still love to eat. But I got to change.
Mine is sweets.
Sweets,
if you're watching on our YouTube channel, comments. What's your vice? For me, it's sweets, and it sounds like good eats.
Good eats and
Good
ice
eats and
cream.
sweet
Ice cream.
It's
Ice
hot.
cream
It's
for me.
been, I don't know, about 10 consecutive days of hot sun.
Right.
Ice cream is yeah. All right. So we kind of touched on this, but I would like it formally from you. We kind of touched on the other side of that energy transfer. What is it like having to fire or let someone go? Does this type of energy transfer take, do you take it home? And because we just talked about you being an extrovert, introvert, what happens there for you?
It's the worst part of my job. The absolute.
And
worst
I
part.
apologize for being the opening question. Thanks, guys.
Right. You never get used to it. You never get used to it. I'm really a real empathetic person. So even though I know that certain things must be done, I'm still always thinking about somebody's family. I'm really on the inside, like how they gonna pay their bills.
He's got 2 kids.
Right, he's got 2 kids.
She's pregnant.
Right, it
with
is
the worst possible scenarios.
It is horrible. It is horrible for me to have to let somebody go.
So, before you get to that state of having to go through that process, what is a process usually like for an employee or somebody before you end up in that situation?
Well, I would say any organization I've been in or any HR I've been a part of, by the time you get to that stage, you know you're heading that stage. Mm-hmm. I can say very rarely it was a shock.
Like you're not surprised that
right. You're
in the big boy office or the big seat or the
right.
big boat.
Right.
You're not in the person that does own the big boat's office.
Right. Look, and I think about things real simple. And I like to use a lot of models, and a model that I've created. Look, first, is it ethical? That's first. Is it legal?
Notes, message.
Right. Is it ethical? Is it legal? Is it necessary? How does it affect people? How does it affect the person?
Gotcha.
So ethical, legal, necessary. If it's not ethical or legal, I can stop right there.
Sure. So you know the answer.
Immediately.
Yeah.
I already know
it's
the answer.
almost like growing up with a mom and dad who look at you and go, if you had to ask the question,
right,
you already knew the answer.
That's right.
Same frame. So
right.
Before it gets to this, how do you go about creating a strong team, or how do you assess talent for positions?
Well, I think that's one of my talents, being able to assess talent. And that might sound crazy, but what I find for most people in leadership, most people in managerial, supervisory, director type roles, they are not good assessors of talent. And the reason I say that is because they assess talent based on themselves.
So we end up making the mistake of
right.
a mirror image. Well, they're good at this. They're routine. Or for me, somebody who's good at having a routine, meticulous. So I would look for those traits, and they might not necessarily be the right fit.
Right, might not necessarily be the right fit. What you're trying to do is create some kind of synergy, or create. You should be looking for things that you don't have.
Sure.
Not the things that you do have, but people end up looking for things that they already have. So you already have that on your team. So people wonder why they spin their wheels. Well, why can't we come up with any creative ideas? Why can't we think outside the box? Because 99% of your team
same people
are all the same
we're the
people.
Same. Shameless plug. What I'm learning the most about doing something like this is the need to consistently be a content creator, social media creator. So if anybody needs a work study opportunity, I'm your guy, and I need somebody different.
Right, you do.
I need somebody different.
You do. People will not fill in the gaps. You have to fill the gaps in.
Sure.
That's the key to building a really strong team, filling in the gaps. And I would also say not being afraid to hire somebody smarter than you.
Sure.
You have to be confident in your role. You have to be confident in your position to say this person might be smarter than me. Right, and being able to manage a lot of people.
A
lot of people fear that.
Yeah,
a lot of people fear that.
They do.
They're going to come get my job.
They're going to take my job, or they're a threat to what I built here. Me. Yeah, and not taking it to that level. So, but going into that, we talked about social media a little bit there. You and I, the last time we saw each other was just before Christmas. We came back, COVID.
Right.
So things have changed. Managing people virtually, managing staff virtually, and now coming back to we had this new normal, and now we're new old school normal, and now we have this blend hybrid life, and people are just still trying to figure out. A lot of the viewers actually too are trying to figure out what that looks like. How are you managing staff virtually, and the influx of Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all of these other outfits that have come?
I think I got to jump on everybody, because I managed a team virtually in the early 2000s.
Oh.
It's actually a team of nurses, nurse case managers, when I worked in health insurance. So I'm used to having a virtual team. I did that for maybe 2 years. Look. All COVID did was just exacerbate what we already knew was coming. If you look at any of the experts, any of the trends, we already knew work from home, hybrid work, that was the wave of the future. As soon as everybody got a computer,
4-day work week.
4-day work week was the way of the future.
I want 4 10s. I want 8 to 8s or 8 to 7s, and I want to go home, and I want to cook, and I want to take an extra day off, or go to the mountains, or fishing, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, but look, leadership is going to have to get comfortable that the way things were done are not going to be the way things are done in the future. I would also say, why would you want it to be? Why would you want it to be?
Why would we go back?
Right. Most of the ways we work were really formed in the early 1900s, right? To work in a manufacturing factory. to work in a
three
factory.
shifts. Yeah, 3 shifts and 24 hours, and we're open forever. There's
Right.
3 versions of the movie theater for the first shift, second shift, third shift. There's 3 different movie theaters. They can all go there.
Absolutely.
3 bowling alleys,
Right.
and it was set up that way.
That's right. It was set.
Yeah.
It was set up.
Yeah.
It was set up that way in the early 1900s,
And we
still
still bleeding it out.
the same model.
Okay.
And nobody's running out to go buy a Model T, but everybody wants to work at the same pace, at the same number of hours, the same thing that made Model Ts. That doesn't make sense.
It's just the other thing is you start to see everyone is making a personal decision. One of the lessons I recently wrote talks about what it's like to come back, helpful hints on coming back,
Right.
and then understanding that people just are tired. And guess what? I do want to be home and work at the laptop, and then take lunch and walk the dog around the house and fold the laundry. Believe it or not, people are folding their laundry.
Right.
So,
Right.
But they want to be there to get their child ready for school and do different things that they weren't always. Two things people are always chasing. We talked about one, the scale. The other one is the clock.
That's right.
And that's just
right.
it. Is
That's right.
When you can decide to not chase one anymore, it probably comes through that way.
Absolutely, and I would say, look, time is the most precious commodity. Money's great. It's great to make money, and I know everybody wants to make money, make a living. But time, if you can offer people time and some work-life balance, and we've been talking about work-life balance for how long? 40 years. 40 years,
well,
and now people are demanding work-life balance.
I want my freedoms.
Right.
Yeah,
so
at work. Yeah.
So you have to be able to offer some of that work-life balance now.
Now, you and I have done, I think we did 3 consecutive years of diversity, equity, inclusion conferences, different trainings. What efforts have you made to continue to foster diversity, competence, and understanding?
Well, you already know, I've worked with diversity and equity in just about every organization that I've worked in. I've worked in a ton of organizations. Diversity and equity and inclusion is one of my passions. One of the things I've tried to do to foster diversity, equity, inclusion is to get people to, well, first, a couple of things. One, equity does not mean equal. It does not mean identical, right? You can have things, what's equitable for you is not necessarily equitable for me.
Right.
Right? So that's one thing. I want people to understand equitable does not mean identical. I think people make a mistake when they try to do that. Also, people need to think about equity in broader terms and how it affects their organization. So when you hear diversity, when you hear the word diversity, I actually, you'll be surprised, but you know this, but for your viewers, I hate the word diversity.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I do not like the word diversity.
I've actually seen him go.
Right, because as soon as people say diversity, what's the first thing you go to? You go to race, maybe gender. The key is to talk about inclusion, being inclusive of everybody. So you have to really start. It helps broaden your way of thinking. So race is a factor, gender is a factor, but also disability. Also, again, like I mentioned earlier, diversity of thought. It's all kinds of different ways to include people.
Yeah.
Sexual orientation. All those things are important.
The new term that I've just kind of coined, and you've heard it here first, is DIABA.
DIABA. Okay.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and accessibility.
That's right.
So it has even from when we started this process, it has evolved. On your term of inclusion, they are starting to work. The work ethic has changed to broaden that horizon too, the addition of belonging as well as accessibility. So, I think you're definitely on the right track, and I think people are starting to feel numb to the word diversity. The way they've finally caught up to Steve. They've caught up with him.
I would say, look, belonging, and I think that's all part of what you mentioned earlier about your mental wellness, feeling like you belong to an organization, feel like the organization really cares about your physical, mental, spiritual health. you really have to there's an old customer service saying, people don't care what you know till they know that you care.
Yes. Yeah.
And people want you to care. People are feeling burnt out. COVID has impacted the world. COVID has impacted the world.
Yeah.
And so people are feeling burnt out. They're scared. They've lost loved ones. All kinds of things have happened.
You know, most recently there's new forms of things that are coming out that are
Right.
causing the same type of vibe. So
Right.
switching gears a little bit about you, what's currently on the nightstand or in the Kindle? What are you currently reading? What do you got cooking?
You know what? And you might be able to relate to this. I hate to say it. I said I wasn't reading anymore after I got my doctorate. That's it. I wasn't reading anything else. I said I'm not picking up another book.
I actually I think when Brad was here, I talked about having the 3-foot graveyard of magazines, and there's like a point of all this stuff that I never got to because I was working on.
Right, man. Look, I used to read for pleasure. I could go through a book a week, easy. Man, that was no problem. But I think the last book I got, in all seriousness, was the 4-Hour Work Week. That's the last book I got, so I'm actually reading that now, because I'm trying to figure out ways to give employees more of that work-life balance.
Sure.
So I'm definitely
4-Hour Work Week.
4-Hour Work Week is what I just cracked it open.
Okay.
So I don't know anything about it yet, but my brother-in-law suggested it.
Okay.
And so that's next up.
All right. Well, you're welcome. Right? Yeah. What would you say is the biggest misconception that people have about you, and how do you work through that?
God, that is a awesome question. I think the biggest misconception is they think, because of my profession, I am what people think of, and I'll just, not just necessarily me, but just my profession is HR. We just don't care. We just don't care at all.
The one that I always heard is HR is not your friend.
HR is not your friend.
I don't believe that, but okay.
I mean, HR.
What I've heard, by the way.
HR is definitely your friend. HR is definitely your friend, and we're here to not only protect the organization but protect the employees. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions is the only time you need to go to HR is when you're in trouble. And I definitely want to do everything I can to prove that wrong. I want HR to be a business partner. Sure. I want people to feel comfortable going to HR. So I think just tying it down, bringing it to the personal, people probably think I'm way meaner than I actually am. They probably think I'm way meaner because I'm not mean at all.
How do you work through that? How do you so the misconception is that they think that, like, oh, hey, here he comes, be careful, or whatever it may be. How do you work through that? Like when you
know what? I always try to find something I have in common with a person. So that goes back to reading. So I read. I look at everything. I read everything. Watches.
Shameless plug. Tell me about your
watch. Watches. This is Italian Twine. Actually, this is Italian Twine. Is one of the only black watchmakers, African American watchmakers in the world. So, watch collector.
Yeah.
Tattoos.
Hey, yeah.
So I have something in common with everybody. So I listen to all kinds of music, and there's very few forms of music that I'm not at least literate in.
Sure.
That I can name a couple of big groups or whatever. So
I think that we're victims of the '90s. I think we ended up eclectically Kurt Cobain.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, wait, was that? Who was that? Oh, that was B.B. King, and you just have like this whole umbrella.
Right. So you do have to try to be eclectic. Yeah. That's how I work through things with people. I try to find things that I have in common with them, and I think my ability to even just be open and watch things and look at things and read things that I may disagree with, just to get the information.
Sure.
And so I can hold conversations with people. I think that's
just
one
get
way.
perspective too, right?
And get perspective.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What was your path to leadership?
Oh wow, it was a windy road. It was a windy
roller coaster type
road. I got my first leadership position in managing a team because they were the worst team in the organization.
I like to call that, here's a wedding singer reference, The Mutants at Table 9,
Yes.
or The Land of Misfit Toys.
Yes.
So you inherited a group that
Absolutely.
they either everybody had written them off or
Yes.
considered them, they're just different. They're not, I don't know what to do with them.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So I was actually a corporate trainer. So they said, okay, but we're gonna let Steve take this team. He's been a trainer for a while. He's been in the organization for a while. And I started out at the very bottom, worked my way up, and we're gonna see what he can do with this team. So that was actually my first.
You learned a lot about yourself.
Yes.
You learned a lot about
Yes.
people, change management.
Yes.
And
Yes.
communication. Wow. That's fairly unconventional.
It was difficult. I'd look and I also learned, again, going back, the worst thing in the world is having to get rid of somebody, but
Yeah.
you have to get rid of people occasionally.
You got to find the right people to put on the bus.
That's right.
And see where you can find their strengths. I'm sure that's the other piece that you kind of worked through.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, tell us about a time that, and I hate to use the F word, but tell us about a time that you failed
Right.
as a leader.
Managing my next team the same way I managed my first team.
Ooh.
Managing my
Man.
next team the same way.
I don't understand. This should work. It worked last time.
Right, it worked last time. There's a whole new set of people. While there were challenges on that team, there weren't as many challenges. There weren't the same types of challenges. So I took the same leadership style from dealing with a failing team that I turned around, by the way. The team turned around. And that's how I got the next team.
Sure.
But I was rewarded with a slightly better team.
Yeah. So you're still assessing.
Right, I'm still assessing, but probably about 6 months in, I wasn't getting the same results, and I had to realize this is a whole different set of people. They have a whole different set of circumstances. They have a whole different set of challenges, and I'm gonna have to modify my style.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned that early in my career. You can't
Wow.
manage everybody the same
Wow.
way, and people say everybody says they know it, but then we still continue to do it.
That's outrageous.
Yeah.
So, but you do. I can't imagine the aha moment that had to come from that
Right.
type of process. Tell me now, I think you kind of hinted to this in the beginning, and it sounded like it was a part of your goal. But what is the true goal of any human resources department? I mean, for me personally, as you think about it, we try to have this liaison, the build of a job description, what we're looking for, how we can look at recruitment, how can I be going back to that partnership piece, and then my personal side. There's also me in my personal world. But what is the true goal, would you feel and say, for if you had an umbrella, if you could speak, I have to speak for all human resources, what would the goal be?
Well, if I don't say this, I'll be drummed out of the union. So to be an employer of choice, to have people beating down your door trying to get into your organization. That's the true goal of any human resources department.
Awesome.
That's really big. There's one thing that every human resources professional wants to be: the employer of choice.
We have come to the last question, Dr. Steve Cathcart.
Okay.
But I just want to do a quick summation. If you have been in a situation where you do not know how to manage a team that everybody else was not sure how to manage, if you've been in a situation where you thought that this would work but it's not working this time, if you've been in a situation where you're not quite sure how to work through diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, or accessibility, we have somebody that you can contact and be able to chat with. Also, he will be in Volume 2 of Net Lessons in Leadership, so check him out. Last question, my good man.
Okay, I'm ready.
What thoughts or ideas do you want to leave the Lessons in Leadership LeaderCast viewers with? Open mic.
I want to leave people with with the idea that, look, change management is more important now than ever. You have to be really nimble, really swift. You have to really be ready to be aggressive with change. Think outside of the box. The world is changing rapidly, and a lot of organizations already have been left behind, and it will continue to happen at a rapid pace if people aren't ready to make changes and really look at ways to become an employer of choice.
Awesome.
That's it.
Sir, as always, I don't think there's a better compliment than my
man.
face hurts from seeing you and smiling so much. Thank you for your
Same
time.
here, my man.
All right.
Always good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.